Friends, I'm so glad we can come together to reminisce about our trip last fall. And I'd love to hear some of your reflections about what you experienced while we were gone. So we're going to start with this. I'd love to know, what are the highlights of the trip for you?
We got to visit a few couples who had different needs and different opportunities, and then different women who had various experiences. There was one woman who was a widow, and she was living by herself. Her children lived kind of close to her, and she really just shared of the heartache that she had experienced of being a widow. And at that time, she had a dream, and she shared it with us. And I had the opportunity to really just speak over her and pray with her to help bring some clarity of that dream. And even now, just I'll think about her and just be reminded of those prayers that we prayed with her. And that was definitely a highlight for me.
So great. To that, what impact did this have on you personally?
Hearing you say that, it reminds me about how each of us kind of found somebody that our stories were really similar. And I remember you connecting with a woman, maybe it was that woman, who, because you had older kids that now are adults. And I remember connecting with somebody who is now pastoring and serving at a church that she grew up at, much like my story. I remember each one of us kind of like, oh, that's like my story. And it was so beautiful.
Yeah. I remember Pastor Jennifer saying, "You're causing us to stop and stand in awe." And it was like, wait, what?
Right.
And that was just really powerful, because all we did was say yes. All we did was say, sure, you asked me to go? Heck yeah. And just the way that, when we say yes, it opens the door for others to feel like they can say yes too. And I feel like that's what they did that day.
And it speaks value. Just the showing up speaks value.
Yeah.
There was something like that bound us together as women, getting our hands dirty in food, making something for other people. It just showed that there are certain universal languages that exist. And one of those things is food, and another one is serving other people in a loving way. And I love to cook already, and I knew that about myself coming into it. And so it was just this moment where I got to be just like them in their space. There was this unspoken dynamic that just really reminded me that there is like this universal sisterhood. There are things about being a person in the world that are so universal. And one of those things is we all eat and we all cook. And these women that were just getting their hands dirty with masa flour, like I left covered in flour. And it was the most joyful hour, I think, of that whole trip for me, where I just felt really attuned to these people that their lives were so different, and we were yet having this shared experience.
There was another point talking about that. It was at the same church and school that you're talking about, Lindsay, where there was a woman who was telling her personal story of her marriage and her life and what it had been like for her. And at one point, she looked directly at me into my eyes and was telling her story. And I felt like she knew my story without me telling my story. It was so cool and so powerful. And so afterwards, I walked up to her and I said, "Our stories are so similar." And she said, "I know." And I don't know if she saw it on my face or the Holy Spirit was working in her and told her to tell her story so that we could feel that bond. But it was impactful and beautiful. And she lived in El Salvador and I live in Chicagoland, and our stories were matched. It was really cool.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that surprised me was when we would go around the room and introduce ourselves, and we would say my name and how long have I been serving in the church and what role would I serve. There were moments when there was another worship leader or someone who was a part of their worship team that would introduce themselves. And then when I would introduce myself as a worship leader as well, then the question would come up, we should sing together. Can we sing something together? And so just in that moment to be able to sing a song together, and not in English, like we would sing it in Spanish, and just it was just a great opportunity to be reminded of just how music, transcends all of those barriers, and we just got to worship together for those few moments. It was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
One of the things that surprised me is when, Joanne, you put this team together and you invited each of us to come on the trip, we all knew each other in advance in varying degrees. We work together. Some of us do a little bit of life together. And so you think you know each other. And then you land in another country and you're in a different environment and you're interacting with women that you don't know. And then you see each other in a different context and you're drawn to different things, and you get to know each other on the team on a deeper level, because it's like, oh, this was important to LaRue and this was important to Lindsay, and just watching each other interact, we just developed our own new sense of intimacy and depth of relationship because of what we experienced in another country. It was really beautiful and fun.
It's the beauty of a serving team.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
the beauty of a serving team. So beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for pulling us together to reminisce.
Thanks for leading the way.